cute.
Okay, so I don't know what it is, but at the beginning of every podcast, I have trouble hearing Taya on my end. So at this point in the video, I could barely hear what she was saying, but I thought I would keep this little behind the scenes clip in to show Miss Willow off a little bit. She had just woken up from a nap, so her hair's crazy. But anyway, hope y'all enjoy the rest of the podcast. Bye!
Are we on episode 6? Is this our sixth episode?
Sixth episode. Today, talking about our kids.
I got Reddit pulled up here so we can share some funnies too from Reddit, and that might even jog our memory of some of our things our kids have done.
Yes, that'll be great. Actually, hold on just one second. Hey, Chandler. He's listening to his book in there. He may not be able to hear me. I'm gonna tell him to have him bring Natalie's phone in here so I can look up some too. It'll be all right. So, Natalie is super funny. So I've got a couple of stories about her, and I even have a couple of videos that I can put in because they're hilarious.
That's so funny.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so this is episode 6 of Oh Shit, I'm a Mom podcast. Whoop, whoop. Today we're going to be talking about our kids. And I think you said something about our birth stories too. I don't know if we've talked about our birth stories, but even if we did, we can tell them again and kind of how we've managed these past years of being a mom. And I think it'll be a good one.
Yeah. I think all you've shared is maybe like if we used an epidural or not. It seems like we might have talked about that, but I talk so much about mom stuff in just normal life, and
right,
all
exactly
might be coming in from somewhere else. We might not have.
Right. Oh, goodness. I remember, okay, so whenever I got pregnant with Natalie, I was 19. And I remember it was around Christmas time, and I had like missed my period. And I was like, and at this point in time, I was living with Natalie's dad. So it was just crazy timing. And I remember telling him that I needed to go to the bank or something like that. And I ended up going to the small Walmart, grabbing a pregnancy test while I was in there and going back and taking it, and it becoming positive. And I remember just like thinking, oh my gosh, like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And I remember putting it on the counter, and I went in there into his bedroom, and I was like, hey, I've got something to show you. And he was like, okay. So he comes into the bathroom, and he's like, listen, if it's a spider, I'm not going to be very happy. And I was like, it's not a spider, dude. Look on the counter. And I just remember us both crying. The first person I called was Abigail Stokes. It was very, very scary. And, you know, having Natalie, being pregnant with Natalie, it wasn't hard or difficult. I didn't have any problems with Natalie. I was just under a lot of stress at the time. But having her I was induced with Natalie, and obviously I had an epidural with her, and I had her. I went in at like 5 o'clock in the morning. They started my Pitocin around 6 o'clock, I think. And by noon, I'd had Natalie. Like, it took 3 pushes and she was out. Like, it was phenomenal.
Good.
With Willow, on the other hand, like I said, I worked at Natalie's school, you know, up until the week after she had gotten out of school. And I had just fixed a big dinner. I fixed like barbecue chicken and all of that stuff. And I remember sitting on the couch, and I was like, oh, my stomach is just like, there's just something not right. So I go to the bathroom, everything's fine. I come back, and I'm sitting on the couch, and I'm sitting like froggy style. So like I'm sitting up on my feet, and I just feel this gush. And I was like, okay. So my aunt, who is a labor and delivery nurse, I call her, and I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. And she's like, okay. I'm gonna go run home real quick and take a shower and get all of my stuff that I need to get, because she had worked all of that day.
Mhm.
And she was like, and I'll meet you back up at the hospital because you're about to have this baby. And I was like, okay, here we go. So I remember it was like 7, more toward 8 o'clock at night whenever we got there. And my mom took Natalie, and I remember just my contractions with Willow hurt so much worse because my water broke, I think. And if it wouldn't have been for my aunt being there, I really don't know how I would have done it. She's such a good nurse. Like, I don't say that just because she's my aunt, but she's truly such a good nurse. She like talked me through everything and calmed me down. The most pain I've ever been in my life. And I just remember telling myself, like, this is not going to last forever. This is going to be over soon. It's going to be okay. And Willow was born. Natalie was born at 12:01 in the afternoon. Willow was born at 1:01 in the morning.
My gosh.
Yeah. And the coolest thing about their birthdays is Natalie was born on one of my great grandmother's birthdays, and Willow was born on her husband, so my great grandpa's birthday.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was really cool to see like a full family moment circle. Yeah. So it was really, really cool.
It is cool. So with Natalie, she wasn't planned. Was Willow planned?
We were not trying, but trying.
Yeah.
It was like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then, we just kind of left it up to God and his timing with Willow. We actually, I don't think I've ever shared this. I know I haven't shared it with a lot of people, but back in April of that year, maybe March, April, I got pregnant. And I ended up having a blighted ovum, which is where something happens within the first 2 weeks of the baby. And it had something to do with the egg and the sperm not connecting. And I ended up having an empty sac. So we ended up.
Dang.
Yeah, it's.
Dude, we had 2 sacs whenever I first went for an ultrasound.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I ended up spotting like that later that week after we had an ultrasound, and they had me on pelvic floor rest and then I went back, and when we checked it, I didn't have that second sac anymore. It was an empty sac.
Oh my gosh. See, and that to me, like with mine, I had to go get a DNC.
Did you?
And they had to remove it. And that was, first of all, that was hard in itself, because I'd already in my mind imagined that there was a baby there. So whenever they told me that there wasn't, it was kind of hard to process that I wasn't necessarily losing a baby, but I was at the same time. Like, it was very hard to wrap my mind around. But my experience in the hospital was not good at all. I remember going in, it was fine. Like, Dr. City was there, and I had a really, really nice nurse. But whenever I woke up and I realized what had just happened, I had a nurse at the end of my bed, and she had called downstairs, and she was like, yeah, this one's emotional. Like, yeah. And I was crying. I just lost I just had this done, and it just was, painful. And she was like, yeah, this one's crying. She's really emotional. And I was like, cried even more, because I was like, how dare you? Yeah. Like, of course I'm going to be emotional. Like, who wouldn't be? But yeah, that was hard.
Like, you were. That's understandable. Very understandable.
Yeah. But we were blessed with Willow after that, and she's just perfect in every way. So
yeah, it all has its meaning and journey to it. It's not always easier. But yeah, it makes you wonder, like, you miss that child that didn't really, exist yet, but still you had fantasy of, like, you start thinking about what it's going to be like and everything. Right. It's normal, but then you have Willow, and it's like, but you couldn't imagine life without her. So, well,
truly, me losing the baby, it was really hard, but I wasn't ready for a baby at that time. I ended up, we were living at Chandler's parents had like a rent house, and they were truck drivers. So they would only come in whenever they were in. And so we were staying at their house at the time, moving into the house that we live in now. So I had the procedure done, and then the next day I had to sit in a room and sign papers for the house that we live in now. And it wasn't the right timing for us. I was able, because Chandler was working, I was able to move a lot of the stuff by myself. And in doing that, it helped me kind of cope with what happened, because I was able to put my mind on something else that was great and not have to really think about the hurt that I was going through too. So
Yeah,
yeah, it was a process. It was a big process.
it is. It's hard. Isn't it crazy how life works, where it's like you just went through such a, turmoil moment in life, and then the next day you're signing papers and doing, like, it's just crazy how life just keeps going.
Yes.
It doesn't down and let you sit sometimes. And that's like goes thing of being truly kind to everybody you come in contact with, because you know what this person went through.
Absolutely.
Just the day before.
Mm-hmm.
On camera, don't you? Oh goodness. I love those stories though. And you got to have Willow, just no induction or anything like that. And
Yeah.
the contractions do get worse though after your water's been broke. I guess you just went straight into that, and it was like, oh man.
The only thing that was wrong with my pregnancy with Willow, and that we didn't know, was my Willow's umbilical cord was so thin. It had attached to the outside of the uterus instead of the inside. And it was, I guess the ultrasound, whenever they did the ultrasound, they couldn't see it. But whenever because you have to give birth to your placenta too, whenever it came out, my aunt and Dr. City were both like, what? Like, if I'm telling you, if it would have not taken hardly anything for it to come apart, and both of us probably wouldn't have been here. So my water breaking when it did, and us going, and when we did, was like a blessing in itself, because we both could have not been here.
That's so scary.
Yeah, it was very scary, but that's the only thing. And we're here, we're alive to tell the story. So I'm very thankful that nothing bad happened.
Yeah. And it's so crazy to me that you can remember the exact time both of them were born, because like since Jude's been here, and I feel like such a bad mom sometimes, but like it takes me a minute to think of his birthday.
Yes.
Like,
I was the same way.
I'm like, I think it's March the 13th. And luckily I still have his little welcome plaque hanging up. So sometimes I have to refer to that just to make sure. I could not tell you the exact time either of them were born though. Not the exact time. I know it was like around 2 or 3 for both of them. You know what I'm saying? Like 3 o'clock. They were both here by then. I think Jude was around like 1. Charlotte was more around 2:40, I want to say. But I don't know for sure. We'll do that.
I remember the weirdest things, and then I forget the most important things. So don't feel bad.
Her weight, I remember she was 7'3" and Jude was 8'2", I believe. He was my bigger boy. Ooh. I was like, yeah. But it's funny that you had, I mean, it's not funny. It's just a coincidence that we both have what'd you call it again? The blighted ovum?
Yeah, blighted ovum is what they're called.
Okay, so see, I went in with him. How did it all work out? Man, I forget things, but it worked. It's like a fog. Like I wouldn't have even thought about it unless you
right.
But we went to the doctor. I found out I was pregnant in July, and I was on vacation in Texas, and I hadn't had a period, and I wasn't on birth control. Now, I mean, I hadn't gotten pregnant so far, and I hadn't been a year.
So let me ask you a question. I don't mean to cut you off, but did you have were you on like regular birth control, like taking the pill, or did you have like the Mirena or the Nexplanon?
I wasn't on any birth control when I got done at all.
What about before that?
Before that, I hadn't been on any since I had Charlotte. Like whenever I got Charlotte, we were trying pretty much. Like it was kind of you and Chandler were. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, which I thought it would have taken a lot longer than it did. Like, we got engaged and then we started like, okay, have a baby, and I was pregnant like the next month. And I was like, whoa, you know, and I kind of knew something was going on with my body because like my boobs were getting sore and I was feeling a little different. And my period was like 3 days late, and so I took a pregnancy test, and it was positive. So the first person I told was my mom. That was my mom I told. And so that was like pretty much it with Charlotte. You know, we were just excited to be having her. Like, we wanted her and everything. And then with Jude, when I found out with him, I was in Texas visiting Kathleen, and we were and I was a few weeks late at this point, and I hadn't been on birth control though, so I was like just waiting, you know, like maybe I'm off, I'm not really routine right now. It happens. And I wasn't really having like sore boobs or anything like that going on with him. And I was taking though, like we had taken a few of the morning after pills a time or two, and where I was like, I'm done taking them. I was like, they're giving me 2 periods in a month, and I'm tired of it. And then I kind of felt like it was like, you know, like with the Depo shot, how it takes your period away. Out. Well, bleeding a month was freaking me out.
Right.
It's not right. So I couldn't do it. And so then I got pregnant. That was pretty much my birth control though. The morning after pill was kind of being my birth control if I felt like something, you know, I need to do. I just don't like birth control pills. I really don't like them.
Yes.
They mess
I
with
don't either.
hormones. They make your period stronger. I just like being natural. I'm like a modern day hippie is what I like to call myself.
Freaking out again. I agree with you 100%. I know that they've done some studies about how birth control, especially the pill, can alter even your taste in men.
What?
So yeah, that was one. And just a couple of months ago, my brother, the weirdest person to ever ask me, but he was like, were you on birth control when you had Natalie? And I was like, I wasn't, but I mean, before that I was. And he was like, oh, well, that's probably one, because, you know, my taste in men changed drastically after I got off of the pill. And then after I had Natalie, I got the Mirena, which I really liked. It took my period away, which I loved. I didn't worry about it so much, but I think and I've heard a lot of stories about like it takes a while for you to get pregnant after you get the Mirena taken out. And then that was probably the reason why I had the blighted ovum. So that's the reason why I asked a while ago what birth control you were on, to see if we were on the same one. Because
I got you to see if that was leaked. Yeah, no, it's birth control, but so you're so talkative, baby. So whenever I got down there to Texas, so Kathleen and me, usually, you know, we're the girls together. We're gonna get a margarita or two. And he's like, let's go get a margarita at this place I've been eyeballing. They have this like crazy happy hour. And I was like, I just don't know. I was like, something's telling me I should do it. And she's like, what? And I'm like, I mean, I could be pregnant. And she's like, no, you're not. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like a few weeks late. And she's like, have you taken a test? And I'm like, no, I haven't. And I'm like, I'm just trying to see if it's going to change. And so then that night she got like, we went to this seafood place, and it had like what's it called? I worked at a Cajun restaurant. Let me think of the name of it. Not buffet, but kind of like etouffee. It's a Cajun meal though. It's a Southern Cajun, whatever. We went and got that, and it was seafood looking. It gave her the worst stomach pains ever. She was like dying from it. So she was supposed to go with me to get a pregnancy test, and she was dying. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to leave the kids here with you, and I'm going to get a pregnancy test real quick. I was like, I'll be back. And we're down, and we weren't in Galveston, one of the places down there with the beach. But I'm driving around, I'm giving a pregnancy test, I make it back, and, you know, I go take it, and I am immediate positive. Oh, God. And so I told Kathleen, Kathleen, I was yelling for her to come in because I wasn't ready to tell Charlotte yet. Obviously, I'd just taken it
Right.
at the time. I didn't know how she was going to take it. I was super nervous about how she was going to take it. And so I called her into the bathroom, kind of like how you called Natalie Sad into the bathroom. Like, Kathleen! And she comes in there and we're just like screaming and we're like, ah! And we were very, I was excited, but I was overwhelmed feeling at the same time.
Yeah.
We weren't planning for this.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I called John while I was down there in Texas. And I'm like, are you sitting down? Because I can't. I'm not the girl to hold a secret.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I tell my daughters the exact same way. Like we got to tell it.
Yeah.
So are you sitting down? And he's like, what's going on? I'm like 8 hours away from home and I'm calling him. Like, are you sitting down? He's like, what? I'm like, oh, I took a pregnancy test. Pregnant. And I remember I could hear the, confliction in his voice too. Like we weren't expecting this and you're kind of like, what do we do next? Like, we didn't even live together at the time. You know what I'm saying? We were in 2 different households still. And so I just enjoyed the rest of the vacation at that point, though, knowing I was pregnant.
Right.
And then came back home and kind of really got to sit down and talk with him. And I don't know, though, like it didn't, like we kept it a secret for September after Charlotte's birthday. Charlotte's birthday was the 17th of September. And I remember telling him, like, I just want her to have like her 5-year-old birthday.
Right.
And bring the news because I was so nervous about how she was going to act. She'd been my baby for 4 years and she's in split homes and she's always kind of battled with that in her own way, being in separate homes and stuff. And so I just thought it was going to go, but she was super excited and we told her and Noah together. So I was like almost into the second trimester.
Hold on, you're breaking up.
Maybe. No.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. I was in the good second trimester, like in the beginning of the second trimester before we even told these. But my mom, I called her after John or I told her in person something. But when I told her, no, I called her. Yeah, I did. I called her. I couldn't wait to tell her. When I got home, I called her. And she was like, I knew you were. And it's so funny because literally a few weeks before that, I was only like 2 or 3 weeks past my period. And so I was still having a beer occasionally and stuff, drinking I wanted, responsibly. Right. And I had a beer at her house. And she made the comment, are you sure you're going to have that? And I was like, what do you mean? And she looked at my nieces and she said, she's pregnant. I just blew her off, like she's talking gibberish because they were always giving me a hard time because I hadn't like gotten remarried yet or anything. And I'm getting 30 and they were always like, I guess we're only going to have Charlotte as the grandkid or whatever, and like just always like that. So I just threw it off. She was right. And whenever I called her, she was like, I was wondering if you were going to be pregnant. She was like, it's just a mother's intuition. She said, I knew you were. And I was like, I thought you were joking. Like, I didn't think so really. It was so funny, so weird. So yeah, then we went to the doctor though. We went to the doctor in like August because it was middle of July, late July, whenever I found out I was pregnant and I got into the doctor by August. They did the ultrasound and everything, I think it was 13 weeks whenever I saw him and they were like, you can find out the gender of the baby. And I'm like, what? No. I want to have something to wait for and look forward to throughout the pregnancy. And a lot of people are like that, but I was like, no, I just want to find out like around the 5-7 month mark, whenever it is 20-something weeks, whenever you find out however many months you are at that point. I was like, I want to wait. And so we did. But whenever we went to that ultrasound, she said she saw 2 sacs, but she didn't see a heartbeat. 1 sac. She had the heartbeat. So then it was after that, a few weeks, maybe later that week, I started spotting. And I never Charlotte or anything during my pregnancy. So I called the doctor and I told him, I'm spotting. I came in for an ultrasound and she did notice that I had an empty sac. And they were like, it's probably because of that, but we say for sure because you're not here to actually get checked out. So they were like, just take pelvic floor rest and all that good stuff. And so I did all the research and I came across the blighted ovum term, which I've never.
Me either.
And
until that.
Yeah. And they really never gave me a label for it, but I say it was a blighted ovum because there was a sac, and then but I had a fertile one still, so he absorbed it. Eventually, that second ultrasound we went to, that empty sac was gone. But some people, they like when I tell them that story, they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry that happened." And I'm like, you like. I get it. If it was just him and it happened with him, I would probably feel lost like you felt. But I was not meant to be a twin mom. I don't believe.
I was fixing to say, you could have had twins.
I don't believe I was meant to be a twin mom. The thought of having to push out 2 babies back to back, overwhelming to me.
Right.
Absolutely overwhelming, because like I go naturally without any epidural, and when that first baby comes, I'm just relieved. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
To have to do it, and you're so tender after that.
Yes.
And do it again. Oh Lord, Jesus, no, please.
No, I saw my mom have to take care of 2 babies at one time. That was not for me. And usually it skips a generation. So I was like, please let it skip this generation because I do not want twins.
And then the having to take care of 2, not just having to birth 2, but then you have one and one arm. So if one wakes up, the other one's waking up like that.
Yeah.
Like I would figure it out, obviously. If God said I was meant for it and he gave it to me, then obviously I'd be meant for it. But in my little human mind, I can't imagine me being meant for it.
Right.
So that was our there. But then we come to find out, like a few ultrasounds later, Jude wanted to be unique. He had a twin almost. You see that drool, girl? He had a twin, and then he had a 2 umbilical cord.
Oh wow!
Before, never knew it was a thing. Usually, you have a 3-vessel umbilical cord. He had a 2-vessel, and so I had to have like growth ultrasounds and such to make sure it's on track, because apparently from a 2-vessel, you could have like kidney problems or heart problems. You could be smaller in weight, and they kept me in that knowledge like the whole time. Like he could be smaller on the size, you know, and and then he comes out 40 weeks and like 2 days, 8 pounds and 2 ounces, and I'm like, y'all are feeding me a load of crap.
Right.
Like kid, nothing slowed him down, and we had to get his kidneys checked just last month, I think it was. We went just a routine checkup to make sure he had proper functioning kidneys due to that 2-vessel umbilical cord, but he does perfectly fine. Apparently it's 1 in every 5 pregnancy that has a 2-vessel umbilical cord. So he just wanted to be unique in his ways.
Oh my goodness.
He perfect. But
it's so cute.
It's funny all the things you learn and see, and how, I don't know, you know, in my perspective of like doctors, it's almost I love a doctor. I know they're very nice and helpful, but I want to have a home birth so bad with like a doula and a midwife, because so like you just go once a month for like the first however many weeks it is until you get to where you go like, you know, once every 2 weeks and then once a week, yada yada. But like it's so just in and out. Like they check the heartbeat. You might get you might get an ultrasound, you might not. How you know, it's all based on you. Like you're really leading the show, and I don't know. I'm just like, I think I could do this without a doctor and all the visits and
it's definitely tough. The only thing that scares me is if something does go wrong, then that's something, because that's something my aunt and I have talked about too. She said it's great and fine and all until there's something wrong, and then you have to call the ambulance to come and transport y'all. And she said it's not worth it in the long run, but people do it all the time. I think it's beautiful. And I would love to sit here and tell you that I would love to do it. That's not me. I am a please give me epidural and another one if you can. Yeah. And I can handle pain very, very well, but I want to in and out, and I'm good. I don't want to sit and that's not me.
Where my the reason I probably would be like an epidural too if I hadn't been like 13 years old when my sister had my niece.
Mm-hmm.
And when she had her, she got an epidural. And like I remember when we went in, like my sister has like really big hips, you know, she's like a short girl, really big hips. And so the nurse was like, oh, you got birthing hips, like the baby come out, you know, you're gonna be good, you'll have great labor, yada yada. And my mom went to, like, everything was going really good there for a while, and then me and my mom left, and my sister got the epidural like right before we left. We went to get lunch or something, and then when we came back, it just all took such a fast turn. It was like her blood pressure was going up, or something was wrong with the blood pressure. The baby was in distress. They were like coming in, suiting up dad, emergency section, time to go. And she had stopped dilating. My mind, I know there's a lot of other people who probably think the same thing because I've heard it a lot in doing research with girls. I just felt like that epidural is what stopped her progression in labor. And it scared me. I was like, I don't want an emergency C-section, because then back there for that emergency C-section, she felt the last cut in the tissue because she wasn't, like, the epidural didn't all the way take. And I had to knock her out immediately after they got the baby out. And then she came to, and she was just not herself. She was crazy. She didn't remember she had a baby. She wanted to die because she was in so much pain. Like, awful watching her heal from it. It was awful watching it go down. And I was like, yep, no, I'll never have an epidural. No.
Everybody is so different. Every pregnancy, every baby, every person is so different. So yeah, stuff like that. I've heard that same, not the same story, but I've heard of people coming like back awake after they are like in the middle of getting a C-section, and I'm like, no, like I do not want to feel. I would rather push a baby out and not have epidural than to feel you cutting my stomach open.
Yeah, it was traumatizing to watch.
I bet.
And so I felt like, okay, whenever I had a baby, I was like, I feel like I need to feel what's going on down there. And maybe it'll help things. So with Charlotte, I went in, no, wasn't having an epidural. Oh, we just hit heads. I went in knowing we were not having an epidural. And I didn't do it. My doctor was a male the first, and I had a woman with Jude. And I love a woman over a male doctor. Man ain't never gave birth to a baby. He's delivered. He ain't never done it.
Right.
Yeah. Was very, I mean, you know, like he tried talking epidural a few times throughout. I was like, no, I'm headstrong, no sir. And so I ended up getting there to the hospital to get induced because he was going on vacation, like on my due date. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to take a chance of you not being here. I just always feel comfortable. You know, you want to have it with the doctor the whole time.
Right.
Anybody else trying to talk me into getting an epidural, because I'd already made myself very clear I wasn't doing it. So I was like, okay, go ahead and induce me before you go on vacation. So we went in for an induction, and he never told me that Pitocin can make the labor worse. My girl doctor told me that because, you know, you kind of get to the end of the pregnancy and you start talking about all the things that it could be and stuff. She was like, so if we have to induce, I try not to do it all natural. And I was like, yeah. She said, because, you know, it can be, the labor can be more intense. I said, well, I got induced with my daughter. My first one.
She's talking.
He is. I got induced with my daughter, my first one, and I did her naturally, you know, and she was like, oh, okay. But I don't have any knowledge of what pregnancy or what labor feels like without, because I had to be induced with him too. He was weeks and 2 days, and he was not trying to come. He wasn't trying to come out into this world, and I don't blame him. But he, with that 2-vessel umbilical cord, the precautions and stuff, the blood get a little bit stronger, so they won't go too far over. So 40 weeks, 2 days was as far as she'd let me go. And she's like, okay, we got to do it. So I don't know what it feels like to labor without Pitocin. But that's probably what's always made my labors go faster too. Like I in the morning out, you know, I'm done by the afternoon. That's another thing I hate about the hospital is the blood work and stuff, not the blood work, but the veins, the needles, how they sit with the IV. And you, the whole stinking time, that's the worst part to labor for me. That is the part. It's so uncomfortable, and like if anybody bumps it, like I don't like needles, and so sticking one in my hand for 24 hours is too much for me. It's entirely too much. But yeah, so I did it with him, and then Charlotte, the male doctor, and I felt like he did this to me because I wasn't getting the epidural. He came in, did his morning rounds, broke my water, I think, whenever he did his morning rounds, told me that he was going to give me a shot. Well, okay, so he told me that if the baby didn't come in the first 2 pushes, where like, you know, because it takes a little bit. This is my first kid. And like, how do I say it? Like where I didn't rip on my own or anything, but he just said that if I seemed like I was struggling to get it out within the first 2 pushes, then he was going to give me a shot and give me an episiotomy. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I didn't really do any research on an episiotomy. He made it sound very simple, you know, just a little cut, help it come. You won't even feel it because I'm going to give you a little shot down there to numb it up, and then I'm going to stitch you back up. Done. Okay. That episiotomy was the worst part of healing. It was the absolutely worst. And so I told my woman doctor the second time, I was like, I do not want an episiotomy. And then when I was birthing Jude, it hurt so bad because you know, that ring of fire they tell you about, not having an epidural, it is a very real thing. That ring, it just, and you can't control it. And so they're telling me to hold on until the doctor gets there, you know, and I'm like, can I please put? And so then when she made it there, it just felt like my world was going to end having to hold it in that long. And I told her, I said, just give me an episiotomy if you have to. And she later, and I was like, I just wanted that baby out of me, okay? Like, I just wanted him out. Like, I was just whatever you had to do. But I was super glad I didn't get an episiotomy. She didn't give me one. Like, told me in that moment. She was like, what do you mean, girl? Give me one good push, and you got him. And yeah, he was out. And I had like not even really tears. She didn't even have to give me any stitches. She just called it like skid marks. And so it was beautiful journeys with both of them, but kind of similar and then totally different at the same time. It's funny. It's so funny how labor works, but I love it, and I want to do it all the time. Like I don't know, like in the moment, it's a lot of mental set of telling yourself like, okay, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be over, you know what I'm saying? It's not gonna last forever. And I do a lot of yoga, like just on a basis. And if anybody is pregnant out there watching this, I would say like if you're expecting, like do yoga, and a lot of them leave like especially pregnancy yoga, because then at the time the session they share like motivational quotes and stuff, you know, to push you through, and it's not to find those in that moment, because you really do have to have some kind of and it's I don't really necessarily need a lot of touch and stuff because I'm trying to get through physical pain. A lot of here I need to talk myself through things, and everybody's people need a lot of that, you know, physical touch and reassurance from their partner, and but it's a lot of mental for me.
I wish that so my sister-in-law and my brother are in Italy right now because my brother is stationed there. And so the last pregnancy that my sister-in-law had, she was standing up. They labored her standing up. And I was like, that's something that they should bring here to the US, because you think about gravity, like it will just help so much. And I've read too that whenever you're sitting like you are, the baby has to come down and then like up. It's not like a, you know what I'm saying? It's not all the way down. If you're standing up, then that's just gravity helping you. And she said that it was, I mean, it didn't phase her any.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's how being bent backwards, like where you're, you know, leaning into the headrest of the bed and stuff, and like bottom, like it just the natural flow of how it's going to be, or in the bathtub and stuff, how midwives do it. It's just more of the natural anatomy of the body. But for me, like, I think I could handle standing up and laboring. Like, it's not comfortable because of the IVs. Like, I don't sit there. I just want to sit there because I don't want anything to be bumped on me.
Right, exactly.
It's so much trying to move that little stinking, you know, pole around with you, and everything tied up. Like, I just wish you could have a baby without all the IVs.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be nice.
Much nicer, and I would be so much more likely to like want to have it, because like the precaution, it is better to be in a hospital. Like when you're wife, you don't have to have all that. It's just natural. It's just natural. No medication involved, and no, it's just doing the thing. And
exactly.
That's what makes me like, please, no more hospitals.
Right. I know. I like the thought and the idea of it. I just don't think that I could actually get myself to do it. And I'm done having kids.
Yes, I'm sure you could, though.
So,
if you wanted, okay, if you don't want to, everybody's, you know, we all have on the different journeys, because everyone, but if you wanted to, I'm sure you could.
Oh, for sure. I know if I had another kid, I probably wouldn't do it. But in my mind, when I think about it, I probably would rather do it. If I educated myself more on it, it would be, you know, I would think more about it. But yeah, no, I'm done having kids.
Yeah.
2 is good for me.
I totally get it. I don't know. It's a beautiful thing. I know John, like whenever he was in there, you know, he had Noah, who's 14. So he's done this before, but she had an epidural. And so whenever he's seen, and with me, I feel like it's a good thing that I don't get the epidural, because I have like, and they said it was Charlotte too. I have a posterior cervix that's back. So every time they would ever like have to check me and stuff, it's like they were pulling my cervix forward too. Yeah, that was never fun. But don't feel like each time I had my kids, it was never on the call of a nurse. You know what I'm saying? They were never like up in centimeters. It's time to go. It was always like with Charlotte, the nurses were all in the room. And, you know, I don't know if you felt it or not since you had an epidural, but you feel like you got to poop when the baby is coming. It's just all pressure in the back end. So I remember telling them, and my mom was in there at this time, and Daryl's mom and Daryl, like we had, you know, this with Jude, it was just me and John. I just wanted it us the first go around. So I wanted my mom there and all that. But my mom had Charlotte too this time, and I didn't want Charlotte in the room. So they were all there, and the nurses, and I told them it was time to push. I told them it's time to push. And the nurse was outside telling her friends, she was like, my girl's crazy in there. She's laughing, and she's 8 centimeters dilated, and she's still laughing. And like, just wait. When she starts feeling some pain, y'all are going to see a different Taya. And they did. They did. It got real at like 9 centimeters.
Well, yeah.
And I was like, time to push. And they're like calling the doctor and everything. And I was pushing. And the nurse kept telling me not to push. Don't push. And my mom said, Taya, listen to her. Don't push. And I said, shut the up. like, leave me alone. I'm hurting. And then the doctor made it there. And then we pushed and got it out. And then with Jude, my nurses kept checking me, and I kept calling them because I felt that feeling coming again, where it was progressing. My contractions were really hard, and I was just, you know, I was changing. I wasn't happy-go-lucky Taya anymore. It was starting to get real. And it's about time. And I called her, asked to be checked, and she checked me, and she was like, I think you're like 7.5. And I'm like, what? And so then I just left her out of it. I didn't call her for like probably 30 minutes. John was over on the couch watching me, and I'm like there in my zone, and I'm like shivering and stuff, and like and out, like it was pain, and he's seen it, and he's like, babe, are you okay? And he's just watching. I'm just like shaking. And then I started to push because the poop pain came. So I need you to call the nurse. And so he called her. She came in there, and they were about to check me. And I said, I feel the baby's head. And so she looked under there. She said, call the doctor. Like, I took the matter into my own hands. Like, you're not going to tell me I'm 8 centimeters again, 8.5 centimeters. No.
Right.
Like, this is time.
Like, it is happening now.
I can feel everything. You don't get to run this show. I can tell you when it's time to go. So yeah, then the doctor like came running, and she got in there, and she was like, you wanted to see how fast I can run today, didn't you? Yeah. I'm like, give me an episiotomy. It was done. It was done. So that's another reason I really feel like I could do the midwife, because I feel like for the most part, like, I feel like I've run the show. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Basically did it all yourself.
Just get the doctor here to cut the umbilical cord and get him out. Make sure he's safe. I mean.
Right. Did you have Charlotte in Searcy?
Yeah.
Who was your doctor?
Dr. Burns.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I didn't go with these. They're just so overused.
They're so, well, I had Chris City, and he is, in my opinion, the best.
Yeah. I don't know. I've never had him for anything. Dr. Burns was cool. He was cool. He was just all male. He was all male, old school male, and was very. I remember like he set a weight limit of 15 pounds, 15 for me to with Charlotte, and I only gained 15 pounds the whole pregnancy. But like, yeah, he definitely. That weight was like his primary.
Yeah. That's what I've heard about him. I don't really know too much about him. I've just heard not good things.
Yeah.
But I've heard not so good things about the other city too. I don't know what his Kyle City.
Yeah, I think so.
I've heard he's commented on weight stuff before too, but nothing really out of the ordinary with him. But Chris City, my favorite.
Yeah. I had Dr. Olin in Conway for June, and I loved her. I was not crazy about the nurses in Conway, but so I would do it again in there in Conway just to have her, just for her.
Right.
Yeah. She's awesome. And have an epidural, like John questioned. He questioned me a lot. He's like, why don't you just do the epidural? Like, like, what's wrong with you, lady? And I was like, I don't want one. I'm okay. I've done it before without one. I don't want one. And she was like, some people don't want one. She was like, I wanted one, but like it's whatever you do. And so I like that. I hated that for her.
My questions were, Chandler, are you sure you're going to be able to not pass out? He was like, I've been in the military. I got this. And I'm like, this different from military. Are you sure you're gonna be able to cut that? But he did perfectly fine. He was over there taking videos and pictures, so I have like pictures of me giving birth to Willow that I never had with Natalie. So it was great. Did you say something? I thought he said something. But yeah, he was over there taking pictures, and at one point in time, Dr. City was like, you want to come over here and cut this? And he was like, oh yeah. And everything worked out fine. But yeah, it was really funny. I don't know. The epidural was something that I definitely knew that I wanted, because in my mind, like, well, with Natalie, I didn't have any problems with it. So this time around, I obviously knew. I was like, I'm getting one, because I think that if I would have been in too much pain, that I wouldn't have been able to push. And that was always in the back of my mind. I never wanted to be in so much pain that I wasn't able to do what I needed to do.
Yeah. And I think you totally could. I think it's just normalized to a point where we have no faith in ourselves as women that handle that pain. But we were literally paid to do this. Like, yes, it is, but it's not unbearable. You know what I'm saying? It is a different type of pain. You feel everything.
Mm-hmm.
But like afterwards, there's just so many pros to it. Like you're around faster. You're not having to do like any, I don't know. I know with the C-section, you have to have like those leg things on to make sure you don't get blood clots. Do you have to do that at all from epidural? No, because you're.
No. And with Willow, my epidural, it worked, but it didn't work all the way.
Yeah.
So I felt some of, you know, pushing Willow out. And then as soon as I was done with her, I think maybe an hour and maybe the time just went by really fast and it had been a couple of hours, but it had only been like an hour and I was already up walking around going to the bathroom. Yeah. So it wasn't like it was, and that's how I was with Natalie too. Like it wasn't a big ordeal for me. Now for other people, it's completely different. Some people, they are not able to move for hours after they have theirs. So I was very grateful and thankful.
Yeah, that's what I've always heard. And so there's a lot of pros to it, and the fact of like just being able to kind of feel like your normal self again. There's many more too that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head because I haven't researched this stuff since before I had Charlotte. I'm gonna see if I can find anything just off the top and see. But I think a delivery is all that matters. Epidural, no epidural, C-section. I just think that sometimes there's probably more women out there who would go the route of no epidural, but they don't have the faith in the, and they don't really know what it's like because it's just
agree.
Most women.
I agree. I was scared. I'm not even gonna lie. I was scared of the amount of pain I would have been in if I didn't have it. That's the reason why I got the epidural.
And there's, I mean, I get it. I do. I was scared too. Don't get me wrong. Let's just see what Google tells us. We don't hold it too crazy. You know, don't take it with a grain of salt.
Right.
It says like it can be shorter labors, possibly. Everybody's different. It's gonna go how it's gonna go sometimes. Right. Epidurals can cause effects like headaches, fever, low blood pressure. See, that's where with my sister I experienced that blood pressure, and when that blood drops or goes up like crazy, they start doing some things. That's when they start talking that emergency stuff.
Right.
Yeah, there's just little things. So anybody who is even tempted to think about it, I would say visit the idea. Try to reach out to some moms who maybe have joined some mom groups and stuff on Facebook, mom groups, whatever, and talk to some moms who maybe haven't had epidurals because it's getting common nowadays. It is a lot of modern day hippies like I am, and they're like, I want little to no medical intervention. There's somebody out there you can most likely find to kind of get feedback on, you know, and if you are going to go without an epidural, it really goes to that mental. You got to build your mental. But anyway, you should have that going because labor is labor, and it is a challenge. Mental stamina.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not a, not a short run. It's a long game. I do understand though what you're saying, how like if you were too tired. I think if I labor pretty quickly, but I've always had to post it. So I think if I was in labor for 12 hours and I hadn't had that baby yet, I think I would be looking into getting that epidural if it wasn't late, because that's a really long time and your body's really tired. Some people labor 24 hours and stuff, I mean.
Right. Some people labor longer than that. That's just crazy. Like I said, I'm just grateful and very thankful that both of my pregnancies went smooth and we had no complications at all, because I've heard some horror stories, and it's no joke. It's absolutely no joke.
Got to be prepared for anything. I think that's another thing that scares me too, and always kind of has, because going into it knowing I didn't want an epidural, I've always been afraid, like, what if something takes a wrong turn and I end up needing C-section and I have no epidural, like.
And that's something that, you definitely need to think about, but it doesn't need to be like topic of conversation, because if you go in thinking that there's something that's going to go wrong, you're going to psych yourself out the entire time. It really needs to, I don't know. I'm whenever I do something that gives me anxiety, I try not to think about it too much because it gives me more anxiety. So going into both of my labors, I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this. Like I don't have an option, obviously, but if I think about it too much, it gives me more anxiety. So I just kind of do it.
Good.
Hello. Willa's knocking on the door. Hi.
I try to be realistic about all things that could happen. But out there.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to ask you with like pregnancy with Natalie.
Hold on, your sound cut out.
Did it cut out?
Ask me again. Yeah.
I know you said you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I know you said you had a really good like pregnancy with Natalie, but Willow, was it just as easy besides, you know, the little hiccups or whatever with like her umbilical cord, not the labor aspect, just the pregnancy aspect?
Very different. It wasn't a bad pregnancy, but with Willow, I had such bad heartburn and acid reflux. Like I was miserable, and it didn't matter what I ate. It did not matter what I ate. It did not matter how many Tums I took. It did not matter how much of any, like I had to drink glasses and glasses and glasses of milk all the time because I was just burning, and that still has not gone fully away. And I remember saying she better come out with some hair, because if she doesn't, like, we're gonna have beef, because this is ridiculous. But yeah, she ended up coming out with a full head of hair. I will say that too, Willow has an elf ear.
Oh.
She has a little, it's just on one side. I don't know if she gets it from me or from Chandler, but she has just a little elf ear, and it, like, I don't know, it just didn't develop. I think it's cute. I think it's so cute. But I want to say between 6 and 7 weeks in utero, that's when the ears develop. So I don't know what happened, but I don't know. I like it. It's just a little cute elf ear. But yeah, other than that, like I didn't have any problems.
Okay.
Now I know with Natalie, I did tear a little bit because I had to get stitches. But with Willow, so Natalie was 7 pounds 4 ounces, and Willow was 6 pounds 3 ounces. So she was smaller. Yeah. So it was a lot easier for her to come out. So I didn't have any problems at all.
Yeah, that's how I know doctor didn't give me the benefit of the doubt with Charlotte, because I had skin marks from an 8-pound 2 baby.
Right.
Like she was 3. She had a big head though. Charlotte had a big ass. Dude, he doesn't have a big head like she did. It's very aligned with his body. Charlotte, she had a big head from day one.
Natalie did too. It's proportioned to her body now, but she did have a big old head. Right. She's a chunky baby though. She used to have rolls upon rolls, and now she's a little skinny thing.
She is. She's active and doing things. Did she have a lot of hair, Natalie?
No. Natalie was bald until she was about 4. No. Yeah. Until she was like 4-ish. She had like some long hair, and then she decided to cut it with scissors. Yeah. So we are just now getting to where we can do little cute hairstyles. And even last year, maybe it was the end of school last year, she was like, "Mom, I want my hair cut." And I was like, okay, let me do it. Yeah. Please let me do it. But yeah, I didn't have any problems with Natalie until Natalie was around 2. This was the summer before she turned 2, I believe. Natalie ran a fever, and she ended up having a seizure. And yeah, that was really, really scary. We were in North Carolina. We were living in North Carolina at the time. And I think the hospital was about 6 minutes away on base. I made it there in 3. And I passed a police officer on my way. And I was like, listen, please don't pull me over. Like, I am rushing my kid to the emergency room. Yeah, that was really, really scary. And then obviously I haven't had anything else serious happen. I think she had a febrile seizure where her fever spiked really fast. But other than that, we haven't really had any problems with Natalie. And Willow, she's just a year old, and hopefully we don't have any problems with her either. But those are the only serious things. Natalie had to get her tonsils taken out, but that wasn't really serious. Yeah. It was just funny, her coming out of the anesthesia, because she was in fight or flight mode. And she was like fighting for her life because she did not know who those people were. And I remember them coming and getting me and being like, well, you'll never have to worry about her being kidnapped. And I was like, good. I raised her right.
Yeah, I know. I had my tonsils out when I was preteen. And I remember I came to and I seen my mom and I was like, I hate you for this. Like I did. It was so painful. And that's
Yeah.
it is very painful. It's an age thing though. It's hard on a younger kid. So anybody, if your kids need their tonsils out, just get them out like Caitlin did young, because it is awful. You can feel the scabs. You can feel it's been catheterized back there. You can. I lived off mashed potatoes for like 2 like
Yeah, it was
because I did. It was hard. It was hard. And I can still remember it. You know, so it's like do it, get it over.
Yeah. She was good. She had to have her tonsils and her adenoids taken out because Natalie was a snore. Like she snored so much. And I brought it up to the doctor and he was like, well, that's not normal. And I was like, I didn't think that it was. So he was like, well, let me look at her tonsils. And her tonsils were like enlarged. So he was like, well, let's schedule it. So we ended up scheduling and getting it done. And it didn't take her very long at all. I want to say by the end of that week, she was already eating regular foods again.
Yeah, it's an age thing. I've always heard smaller kids.
Oh, yeah.
Never even gave my mom the option whenever I was smaller, but I stayed sick constantly. Like I was constantly sick. And so then whenever I was a preteen, they finally offered to take my tonsils out. And I was like, yeah, sure. I've even asked about getting Charlotte's out because she gets ear infections a lot and she holds, but they want to give her the tubes. I'm not a tube mom. I'm a modern day hippie. So I'm like, just give her some stinking antibiotics if you have to, I guess.
Right.
I had tubes in her ears. After she got the tubes in, she started getting staph infections in her ears. And, you know, the tubes, I don't know. It just, to me, do go together sometimes. I don't want to go down that journey. So I don't know. Hopefully when she's a teenager, they don't try to take her tonsils out because I already know she's going to hate me. I already know. I've been there, done that. And see, I wanted to ask you how your pregnancy was because I don't know if it's a boy thing. I kind of thinking maybe it was just my age because I'm closer to 30. But like with Charlotte, my pregnancy was magnificent. No, I worked up until 1st of September. She was born on the 17th. So, and I didn't do hard work. I just worked at JCPenney's, you know, standing at a cash register and stuff like that. Easy work, but I worked. And it was great labor. Pregnancy. It was a great pregnancy. Like I didn't have any heartburn. She got bald headed too. She didn't get any hair until about 2. She started to have this like little, you know, she had a little bit on top and then curl pieces down here on the bottom. And 3, I think she got her first little trim because I've always heard the trims will kind of help the hair grow. Do that, but she had a mullet. Yeah. For 3 years old. Like it was a curly mullet. Cutest stinking thing ever, and I miss it with all my heart. But didn't have any heartburn, none of the stuff, no pains, gained 15 pounds the whole pregnancy. Jude comes along, and you know you're supposed to glow and all this stuff with boys. Full badonk. Because acne, I've never had acne. You know me from high school. I never had acne.
Yeah.
Acne breakouts. It was like I was a hormonal stinking teenager and I was almost 30. Like what was going on? And it was pregnancy hormone. Acne though, heartburn. Oh my gosh, the heartburn was so bad. I couldn't drink milk. Girl, I couldn't drink orange juice. I couldn't eat Tums without getting heartburn. They gave me heartburn. The things that fight it gave it to me. I just died every single day. I couldn't sleep at night there at the end because it was just on fire and coming constantly. It was horrible. And we did an ultrasound. I think it was at the gender one. I think it was that one that we went to. And she showed us because I had her. I'm old school. I don't want to know until like 25 weeks or whenever it is you go to get your ultrasound. And I don't want to know right then. I want to know and I want to have a gender reveal and I want to be surprised. So she didn't show us, what was in between the legs.
Mhm.
About his hair and stuff, and you could just see his little curls in the sound. And I had never seen that before. Baby's hair,
Really cool.
the coolest. I didn't know what it was. And she told us it was hair, and I was like, no way. So I knew he had hair, but I was like, I was thinking like you, this baby better come out with some good hair. I mean, he obviously came out with good hair. But when he came out, I was like, yes, it was worth it. It was worth the heartburn. But my heartburn immediately went away after
So
having him. I have heartburn since then.
yeah, mine's not as bad, but I still have really bad like reflux, and I don't know if it's just gonna be something that sticks with me. I also am a hot sauce girly. I love some Tabasco sauce, and anything you can give me that's hot, I want it. So that's probably another problem. But yeah, I don't know. And it's every once in a while. I'll have flare-ups. Usually when I drink sweet tea, it happens then too. Really, really bad. So I don't know if it's just certain things, but yeah, no. My pregnancy with Willow was definitely harder on my body.
Yeah.
I felt it.
Yeah.
Like I felt it in my feet. I felt it in my legs. I felt it in my knees. Like I felt it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
Feel it in my feet and stuff. It was like he sat so low. Boys, like my pelvis and my lower belly area was so sore constantly. Like it felt like I was going to be giving labor any day at like 30 weeks. I just ached. I ached so bad from him on that floor. Not really my feet or anything, just that, like lower ab pelvis area. They even offered me PT for my pelvis floor, and I was like, no.
Need some of that belly tape.
I ended up
wrap it up.
Yeah, I didn't get the tape. I ended up getting the Velcro belt.
Oh yeah.
I ended up getting that, and it helped a lot. But I still had, and my belly wasn't like everybody. And okay, so like I know every mom, every pregnant woman out there ever relates to this when somebody tells you, "Oh, you're so small." It's like I know they mean it in a good thing, but it like kind of makes you think you're crazy because like I started out my pregnancy with Jude at like 130 pounds, 170. I gained 40 freaking pounds, and the whole thing I heard the whole time is, "Oh, you're so small. You're gonna have such a small baby. Oh, you're so small." Like you don't see what's going on under here if I took my shirt off. You know what I'm saying? Like it carries differently, and you don't know what I started out pre-baby. Like this is a lot of extra weight on me. And then this baby came out 8'2". I couldn't wait to tell people that, Caitlin. Most people 8'2". I'm gonna have a small baby, my butt.
Right. Oh, I was 180 pounds roundabout whenever I got pregnant with Willow. I got up to 200 pounds when I was pregnant with Willow. And that's the biggest I have ever been in my life. And I'm not saying that's big. I'm just saying that was big for me. And it's taken me, I mean, I've lost 20 pounds since then. So I feel a lot better. Once school starts and we can get a routine going, I'm going to start walking again. Hopefully that number goes down. But 200 pounds for me and my body does not work well.
Yeah.
It's hard on my feet. I have really bad knees and feet anyway. It's just, it was not for me. And working at, because I worked at Great Clips whenever I first found out I was pregnant with Willow. Standing on my feet for 8 hours a day was rough. So rough. And those mats that we have don't help. They do not help at all. They do not help at all.
No. Yeah, I served with Jude. I was a server whenever I got pregnant with him, and that was hard on my body. Like I have friends who are serving and they're pregnant, and I'm like, kudos to you because it's so hard on my body. Like I left the worst feeling after serving because like bending, like stretching across those tables and stuff to get plates. It did a number on my body. So that's whenever I left and I went to Optimum. That's how I know they're trash. I know. That's how I know. I went there, but it was a good change. I needed that change. And it was a lot slower. And I down some, but I worked up until I worked up until I was 39 weeks, either 39 or 38. And I was like, you know what? I was going to work until the day I had him. And
Mhm.
I was like, I think I've hit my last. I was really not, I don't be nice to anybody.
Right.
I'm tired of
Well, toward the end, you're just like, I'm ready to get this thing out of me and I'm ready to just get on with my life. Because, I mean, you wait 9 months, that's a long time.
it.
A
And I
long
want to get
time.
the house clean and I want to get some sleep. I couldn't sleep really, but I wanted to take it easy and not have to work 9 to 7 o'clock. Like I just wanted to lay and lounge before I had a newborn.
Right.
So, but and then I was afraid too, like what if I'm up here at work getting closer and closer to my due date and my water breaks at work?
Right.
I don't want to do that.
I worried about that too. I was like, my water's going to break in front of a whole bunch of kids and I'm not going to know what to say or do. Be like, I just peed on myself. Sorry. Like, what do you say? Like, so I was thankful. Like, I mean, it was like a week to the day that Natalie had gotten out of school. Like, I was very glad that
Very great.
it would have been so funny too.
It would have. You would have traumatized us.
I would have. Oh my gosh. And it's so funny to see because last year Natalie had a bunch of kids that were in her kindergarten class in her class.
Mhm.
So they would be like, "Where's your belly at?
Oh.
Was that in there?" And she's there now. And like, so it was so funny to see their reaction.
Yeah.
I even had when I was working there, I had a couple of fourth grade girls. They were like, "Hey, Miss Caitlin, come here." And I was like, "What?" And they were like, "How do you shave your legs?" Like, I just prop it up on the side of the tub and I shave my legs. What are you talking about? Like, it's not in that much of in the way. And they were like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it's so funny."
The way it was hard to do anything there towards
Like, yeah.
It's not
Yeah, like, oh, I'm jiggling everything. Sorry. But yeah, no, it was not easy by any means. I had to have Chandler shave my legs at one point in time because I just couldn't. Like, there was no going over to the side or anything. It was just there.
Yeah, literally, it's getting wide and everything. And boys, you kind of get wider out. It seems like I don't know. I didn't think I got that wide out with Charlotte. Like I kind of just spread everywhere with.
I was just big with Willow.
Goodness, but you only gained 20 pounds, really. Then.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, and that was I probably wasn't eating the best either. I was enjoying being pregnant, not having to worry about it.
Yep. Whenever it's pregnant, I'm pregnant. Give me what I want.
Exactly. Let me enjoy this.
Yes. And with Charlotte, I worked out my entire pregnancy, which really helped me maintain my weight. With dude, I have no energy. I depleted, so sore, and I was just, I love pregnancy though. It doesn't matter if it was, like we're here complaining kind of in a way, not really complaining, just being honest with how it was. And I love it. And I would do it over again. But I think it was age and being a boy pregnancy and being closer to 30. Like with Charlotte, I was 21 when I had 20 while I was pregnant. So it was a lot easier on my body.
Yeah. Age plays a big thing in it because
it does.
I mean, there was a 7-year difference between Natalie and Willow. Yeah, it definitely made a difference for sure.
Yeah, it's very, a lot of my friends that have had babies recently, because a lot of our friends have been pregnant and I've talked to them and they're like, yeah, like, I'm tired. And I'm like, it's got to be our age, I guess.
We're getting old. Yeah. We're getting old. But I'll be 28 next month.
I'll be 28 next year, but I wouldn't ever recommend like anybody having a kid at 20 or 21 at the same time.
No. 25 to 30 is your golden years.
You feel like you have it all together at 21. You're like, I'm an adult. No, like when I look back, I'm like, those are the years I should have hustled. Like I should have worked and hustled and had money saved up and bought a house and then had a baby.
But you know what? My kids will be out of the house in like my 40s, and that's when I can really. And then in a couple of years after that, you know, we'll start having grandkids, and we'll be able to spoil our grandkids and not have to worry about being in our 50s and having graduates.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean,
I'm going to be in my 50s when I have some, because I want to have another one when Jude's 2, and then I'd like to have another one after that.
Mm-hmm.
Like 35 would be my cutoff age, I think, when I'll be done having kids.
Yeah.
Like that'd be, and he'd be about 40 at that time. He'd be turning 40, 35. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to have kids constantly in my house. Like, I don't want it to be a time without. So then whenever my kids are out, like, okay, Charlotte, Noah, you're like about 28 now. Go be getting some, some grandbabies.
I told Chandler, I was like, if you want me to have one more, 30 is my cutoff date. After that,
done. Yeah.
I'm done. Cutting it off.
I feel like that's going to be the season of life where I'm kind of lost in, is like whenever, if like they don't have any grandkids yet and I don't have any kids at home,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm going to feel lost in that season of life. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm happy to like have that time back with John and like be able to date and do things, do my own thing, and not have to necessarily have a child attached to me the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
But I really love being a mom. Like, it's really, and that's why I want so many kids. I'm like, let's have like 5 kids, 6 kids max, and then they can all have like 3 kids each. So then we'll have like 20 grandkids, and like, you know, it's just,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll all have houses. Like, it's just a big, I don't know, I just want like a really big family. I've always wanted that, and I've never had, like, I was telling John this morning, like, Charlotte, when she's grown, I'm still gonna be showing up, picking my homegirl up, and we're gonna be going shopping and getting coffees, and we're gonna be doing all day. And like, my doesn't do that with me. So like, this is like literally where I'm getting to like live through, you know, childhood. I guess I'm getting to heal my child. And I'm getting to live the childhood.
That's one of my goals, is to have a better relationship with my daughters than I have with my mom or my mom has with her mom. That's like my biggest goal in life, is for us to be able to go and do these things, or for my girls to even come to me with, you know, personal stuff. And I don't know, that's the stuff that I'm ready for. I'm ready for us to be making memories. I love the stage that we're at right now. I wish a couple of things were different, but with the stage that we're at right now, it's kind of hard with the age gap, because like, even going to the splash pad, I kind of feel bad because I'm having to keep eyes on Willow the entire time. And Natalie wants to stay with us too. And I'm like, Natalie, go play. But then she doesn't have anybody to play with. So I'm kind of ready for Willow to be a little bit older, and for us to be able to go and do things like together, you know. But I don't know. I'm excited about all of it, really. But I'm ready to see, I don't know, I'm ready to see what they do. I'm excited to see like the paths they will take and the choices they will make, and that's what I'm excited about, them actually living their lives.
Yeah I'm not. No, I don't, like, please don't leave, don't get like 7 is like my cutoff age where like you can just slow down, like growing a whole lot. Like, I'm blessed to see you grow up, obviously, and like, I know some parents don't get to see their kids grow up, and so it's like it's a blessing and a thing, but it's like when she says she can do things on her own, I'm like, okay, but I was happy to do it for you. And she's like, it's okay, you can do it next time. I'm like, okay.
See, I was kind of like that with Natalie, kind of. I don't know, I like to see, because I feel like it's like a milestone for them. Do you know what I'm saying? Being able to feed themselves. Like Willow, she'll pick up a fork and she'll like stab her food and feed herself now, and I'm like, she feeds herself. I don't know, it feels like an accomplishment to me.
It is. Like,
I'm teaching you how to do these things, and you're actually picking it up and learning it. I think that's why it's not that I'm not sad that my kids are growing up, but I like the growing up part. Does that make sense? Not to say I don't like being a mom, but I will like it whenever I can see them, you know, go to on their first date, go to prom, go to graduate high school, go to college, you know, all of that stuff. I can't wait.
That is mom. I mean, all that's a mom life. You know what I'm saying? There's just different phases of motherhood, and everybody likes a different phase a little more. You know, it's that aspect. Like, my favorite age is when they're like how Willow's age is, like 1 to 3. That's my favorite phase. they kind of have independence, but they still need you a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
that's my favorite. But I love all the phases, you know, just
Right.
like, yeah, it's
Right.
amazing. But everybody has their preference stage where it's like they're kind of independent or they're more independent, or some love a newborn stage.
Mm-hmm.
Me, newborn stage is a little hard, in my opinion.
I'm
love
not a fan of the newborn stage. I love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
It's really hard.
Yes, I agree.
say one last thing, because whenever you said about your water break-in, it reminded me of my mom when she had me. I wasn't there, obviously. I was in her womb, but she told me this whatever, because she had two. My brother, 15 and 16 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
So she had already had two babies before me, but she was 32 when she had me. And my dad, she was cooking like you were, dinner for everybody, and her water broke. And she went and changed her clothes because she thought she peed on herself. And so she came back out, and then she looked at my dad because she got wet again. She was like, man, I keep peeing on myself. She was like, I don't know what's going on. He said, you dummy, your water broke. And so then they went to the hospital. But it cracked every time I heard that, because I'm like, you were 32 and you'd had two babies before me. You didn't even know your water had broke. She said, I was cooking. I felt fine. She's like, I just thought I was peeing on myself. I was like, oh my Lord. It's so funny. That story lives rent free in my head. And I'm afraid to. I've never had to go through labor like on its own. I was always on. And so that was always something I was kind of afraid of. Like, what if I don't even know I'm going into
Right. I know it's hard to tell, because like whenever my water broke, like I thought I did pee on myself. And then it just like kept coming, and I was like, nope, this isn't pee. This is not pee. We got to get to the hospital. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it's hard to tell.
Apparently, yeah, it's so funny. But my phone's about to be dying, so you want to wrap it up, and next week we can go into the Reddit stories, since we kind of got into our.
That's fine with me.
Flavors. Reddit's fun. I've looked over it a little bit, so I think people will enjoy seeing, hearing that and everything, and maybe funny stories with us too that they remember from their little ones in the comments.
Yeah. We'll have to bring Natalie on, let her tell some funny stories. She's hilarious.
I got below too. She remembers with her being, bigger and stuff. Probably funny, because I'm sure we'll say some funny things coming up now, right? She's one. She's funny.
Her new word is meatball. Meatball. I love it.
It's so fun.
Holding you so tiny and free, I can't wait to see who you will grow up to be. From first steps to first days, I'll watch you as you walk away through all of the memories and milestones you'll make. No, I'll be watching every step you take. In the future, when I'm fighting the tears as I watch it play back, I'll smile and say, I love you to the moon and back.